Devotion is very peculiar in how many forms it may take, and nowhere is that more prevalent than in Hunter x Hunter between the royal guards and their king, Meruem. All three royal guards view Meruem in high regard, but each in their own unique and distinct way. Whether it be worship, respect, or duty, each royal guard embraces it fully. I want to delve into each one separately and figure out what defines their devotion and in turn their character. So without further ado, let's start with the royal guard, Poof. Poof is without a doubt the most disliked royal guard by the fans, and that's almost solely because of his obsessive devotion to the king. Poof doesn't look up to Meruem like a king, but his devotion aligns a lot more closely with what you'd expect from a holy figure and a devout follower. Poof is perfectly content when Meruem remains to be his vision of perfect. Meruem to Poof is a person who is unbeatable and unreachable by any living creature. However, when Komugi, a blind and weak human, is able to beat Meruem in Gungi, you can see Poof becomes a bit unnerved. He keeps becoming more unhinged as his view of the king becomes more realistic and less mystical. Eventually, Poof wants to take it into his own hands and kill Komugi. He tells himself that Komugi is the only one standing in the king's way, so she has to be sacrificed when really, the issue is that Poof is seeing the king as a person with both strengths and flaws. This idea of the king being above everyone else is an issue beyond just Komugi. When the king asks the three royal guards what his name is, Poof tells Meruem that he doesn't need a name. He should only be known as the king. His thought process is that once the king has an identity, it humanizes him more. It makes the king more grounded. It's the idea that Poof can change the king into his image of perfect that Poof's character thrives upon. When the king has amnesia, Poof attempts to kill Komugi, hoping that the memory of her will never return, and it'll revert Meruem to the man he devotes his own life to. I think this is also the reason that Poof is the least loved royal guard. While most people love how the king is changing, Poof is the one roadblock trying to revert Meruem to how he was before Komugi. Poof has a very fragile view of the king that he tries to maintain at all times, no matter how fabricated that view becomes. Youpi is a soldier. He shows that when he commends and spares Knuckle and Moral for their combat prowess, but when he is with Meruem, it's even more apparent. Youpi views the king as his commanding officer, like a soldier would. The king is a rank above him, and that's all there is to it. When Komugi arrives and the king challenges her, just like Poof, Youpi takes issue with Komugi beating the king. Unlike Poof, however, Youpi's worries are that this is a distraction from the king's true goals and they're taking too long. Even though Youpi has these concerns, Youpi doesn't ever act upon it other than voicing concerns to Poof. Youpi wouldn't step out of line like that, as he is a soldier and Meruem is above him. When Meruem asks the royal guard what his name is, Youpi responds by saying it's beyond his capacity and that he can't think of an answer. The general takeaway for most people is that Youpi is not smart enough to answer, but I don't think that's what he means. The reason I don't think Youpi is saying that he isn't smart enough is that even though he is the dimmest of the three royal guards, we see in the palace invasion that he's still quite capable of very deep and critical thought. If we had to eliminate that possibility, the only one I can think of that remains is the possibility that he's saying that someone of his rank doesn't have the capacity to answer that question for the king. When the palace gets attacked by Xeno's dragon dive, both Pitou and Poof try to reach the king, ignoring their orders and nearby threats. Youpi, however, stays stationed at the stairs where he was ordered, only attempting to get to the king after dealing with the threats present. He follows his orders before going to guard the king, unlike the two other royal guards. There is, however, a change in his behavior after the fight between Meruem and Netero. When he sees the king's corpse, he mourns as you would expect a guard to, but when Poof is capable of re-energizing the king and starts to reanimate him, Youpi changes to be a lot more of a fanatic, similar to Poof. A lot of people think his fanatical reaction to healing the king is out of character for Youpi, and it is if he was just a soldier, but his character is quickly changing when he sees a miracle before his eyes. He has seen the corpse of his leader be resurrected before his very eyes, so he begins to align closer to Poof in being a worshipper of a higher life form after this divine experience. It's not surprising that both Poof and Youpi have the exact same reaction for the first time during this scene, as they're beginning to link up in their image of the king. They've thought alike before, but they've never been the exact same in how they thought. until Youpi changes from being a soldier to a devout follower of Meruem, just like Poof. For me, Pitou resembles a mother in a lot of ways. The first example of that resides in the same Komugi issue that the other royal guards had. While both Youpi and Poof thought Komugi was a distraction and didn't benefit the king, Pitou had no issue with Komugi and wished for the king to have whatever he wanted, including someone dear to him like Komugi. The same went for the issue of the king's name. When Pitou was asked about the king's name, she responded that what mattered most was how the king felt, and he should choose whatever he saw fit. While she responded positively to the question, Youpi responded very neutral, and Poof had a negative response. Later on, when Komugi is injured and her life is in peril, Poof wants to kill Komugi, Youpi wishes for her to just be forgotten about and the king to never see her again, yet Pitou wants to heal her at the stake of his own life. Pitou is willing to trade every last limb that she has and nearly forfeit her life for the sake of someone the king holds dear. I think we could describe Pitou's adoration for the king as an unconditional love, which is important for the next thing I want to bring up. My final piece of evidence to support this is actually the scene where Youpi and Poof resurrect the king. They describe what to them feels like unconditional love, but while they do so, several images of mother and child appear. While you could say that all three royal guards have an unconditional loyalty to the king, I don't think it would be described as love for Poof and Youpi, and here's my reason why. Just 3 episodes after the scene with Poof and Youpi reviving Meruem, Pitou has to fight Gon, and in this fight, Pitou is killed. Post-mortem, however, Pitou is able to activate his Nen, due only to his intense devotion to the king. Pitou was the only guard to activate his Nen after death, which is noteworthy as Youpi had been threatened with intent to kill just moments before his death, and Poof likely died with Wolfine in his vicinity, yet neither did a thing. Even though all three have an unconditional loyalty, only Pitou was able to fight for the king after death, and if his devotion has to be stronger than the unconditional loyalty that Poof and Youpi feel, I think the only way to describe it is an unconditional love, which was likened in Hunter x Hunter itself to be the love between mother and child. In all honesty, these characters have so much depth that they can't be condensed into just one role, but I do think that's where Togashi started building these characters. I'd love to hear what other people think. I haven't ever heard this discussed, and I think there is at least enough evidence to warrant a discussion. Also, I'm still trying to work out all the issues I can with these videos, so let me know what you guys think I could improve on, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video. See you until then.